Participation in this online yoga program could result in injury. Not all exercises presented here are suitable for everyone. These exercises are not intended to substitute for proper medical care. Advice: always consult your physician before beginning any exercise program. The creators, teachers, and producers assume no responsibility for injuries from participation in this program. And now here's Keith.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay? Everybody good? Oh, excellent. So I want to start out just with our breathing, just with the breath. And I mentioned Thich Nhat Hanh, I think, in one of the previous classes. And one of the methods that he teaches is to sort of repeat to yourself as you breathe, breathing in and breathing out, as a way to sort of focus our attention. And so by focusing on those words, we're not thinking about anything else. We're feeling the breath and focusing on the words. So I'd like to just start with that. So sitting up nice and tall in mountain pose. So mountain pose, if you've been to class before, you're familiar that mountain pose is the idea is extending the spine up. It's really lifting and extending the spine so that we have those nice three curves, those natural curves in the spine. And if you want to sit against the back of the chair, feel free to do that. That's always okay. So whatever we can do to help us sit up with some ease and to sit up with good posture. So it's really the same as when the teacher used to tell you to sit up straight, that it's that same idea. So we're breathing in. So you can try repeating that. You don't have to, but you can check it out and see how that feels. See if it helps you concentrate. So breathing in and then breathing out as you exhale. Really relaxing as you breathe out. And breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in and breathing out. And I'm going to begin to repeat that silently to myself for a few breaths. Continue to breathe naturally, normally, and then feel the weight in the feet. In other words, feel that the feet are balanced. Feel that we have an evenness of pressure on the bottoms of the feet. And the same thing with the buttocks. The buttocks, we're supported by our feet and buttocks in this pose. So we want to feel even. We want to feel balanced. And then the same with the shoulders. Feel like the shoulders are evenly hanging down. And the same thing with the ears and even the head. And this is a great place if your eyes aren't closed, to try closing the eyes. So you really begin to tune into feeling the body as you're breathing. So we always want to maintain that connection with the breath. We always want to maintain that connection with the breath. And we will never hold the breath in this class. I don't think so anyway. I'll tell you if we should be holding the breath, but I'm not sure. It's hardly ever taught holding the breath in yoga. Sometimes we have to remind people, if a pose is challenging, to actually remember to breathe. And sometimes if we begin to tighten the abdomen or tighten certain parts of the body, we freeze the breath. We want to make sure the breath is flowing freely. I'm going to have a little sound. And when you hear the sound, feel free to add your sound to it. So that would be the sound of Om. Remember, the Om is 3 sounds. It's Ah. So notice the shape of the mouth. That's very important. The shape of the mouth is ah, and O. So make the O shape like a fish. And the last one is we'll close the mouth all the way. Mm. And I really like that one because, well, it reminds me, I like maybe when you eat chocolate or something, but I feel the vibration in the throat very nicely when I do that. So it's a, so try it a couple of times, just, notice the shape of the mouth. Let's try it with the sound of the bowl. So see if you can tune your ear to hearing the sound of the bowl and then letting your voice follow the sound of the bowl. Letting your voice follow the sound of the bowl. Remember this, the sound of Om, that sound is our yoga for the voice. So it's our exercise of the vocal cords. And, um, they need exercising. And, even, actually, let's start with another exercise. I'm not sure we've done this before, but this is called Brummery. It's called Brummery. Some people call it the Bumblebee Breath. And actually, before we do that, just rock side to side a little bit, just so you're not all stiff. Maybe shake the shoulder, roll the shoulders while you do it. Rock from side to side and roll the shoulders back. So you got a couple things going on at the same time. So if you want more of a challenge, the higher you lift the foot, the more challenging it is. You notice that there's more effort required in these muscles right along the front of the body as we lift the knee up. So brummery is, people call it the bumblebee breath because it's sort of a buzzing sound. And I like to imagine it as if a bee, the door is shut, but if the door was open, the door's open a little bit and the bee flies in. So at first it's very soft, like a, and then as the bee gets closer, you can hear it, it becomes louder. And then there's a window over here. So we're going to imagine the window's open and the bee is going to fly out the window. So it's soft and it gets louder and louder as it gets closer. And then when the bee flies away, it gets soft. And that can be nice. Sometimes bees, when they fly, I like bees, but I kind of prefer them when they're flying away from me instead of at me. And so it's like this. So we take a normal breath in. So it's better. So we'll practice. It's better when we practice to make a shorter sound and to make it a nice and smooth. So if it's really choppy, if it's becoming too choppy, it sounds more like a dying bee. So we don't really want, we want all our bees to be alive. We want them to fly in and then fly on their way. Happy bees. Although it's raining today, so I don't know if they'd be happy, but soon. I saw a butterfly the other day. I was at Lars Anderson a few days ago, and there was actually a butterfly. So that was very exciting. So let's try that a few times. And since I won't be able to hear you, when you breathe in and you make the brummery sound, don't worry in the beginning how it sounds. Just do the best you can. And then take another breath in and try it again with maybe 50% effort. So don't over effort it. Don't overthink it. So let's try it. Nice and easy. Feel free to close the eyes. And one last time. So I will say, a reminder, it's always good to have a glass of water, especially Brummery. Sometimes it makes people cough a little bit. It at least tickles the throat. The more you practice it, the less you'll cough. You'll get used to it. And so getting used to it, so I want to start with a quote. So I sent this with the invitation that I sent out. It says, often, so this is The World According to Mr. Rogers. So this is Mr. Rogers. Often when you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else. I felt that many times. My hope for all of us is that the miles we go before we sleep will be filled with all the feelings that come from deep caring, delight, sadness, joy, wisdom, and that in all the endings of our life, we will be able to see the new beginnings. And that seems so appropriate to today because so many things have ended, and yet so many things are, some not great things are happening, and at the same time, it's forcing us to do things differently. So there's new beginnings, whether we like them or not. And I wanted to just say that I don't know how people think of yoga in their life, but if you're coming to classes, so there's the class on Friday and then another class on Tuesday. If you're coming to the classes and have been coming regularly, you're now a yogi, whether you realized it or not. Because really, this idea of yoga is really just about practicing the things that we do. And it doesn't have to be the things that the yoga techniques that we do. There's many forms of yoga. So yoga means union, this completion of ourselves. And we don't really have time to talk too much yoga philosophy, but you are now hatha yogis. So hatha is the physical part of yoga. So if you're coming regularly, whether you knew it or not, you're now officially yogis. Hopefully everybody's okay with that. And let's start with our breath. Let's bring our hands together right in the front and take a couple of breaths in. And then as you inhale, we'll lift up. So we're going to start to warm up. I'm going to warm up with the breath and the little movement. So inhaling up, arms going around. So if you feel a little bit cold, try breathing just a little faster. And if you feel like you need to slow down, if you feel like you're already warm, try breathing slower. Let the breath become slower. Let the movement become slower. So we use the breath to regulate the nervous system here. So we're inhaling and coming up. And exhale, the hands are floating down and coming together. And see if you can feel the hands touching when they come together. And then see if you can feel them separating when they come apart. And feel free, if you want, to, if you have something you'd like to hold between the thighs, you can do that. So we talked about a block or a rolled up towel or a cushion. So sometimes it keeps, otherwise my legs kind of fall out like this. So this is a good way to activate the inner thighs. And then we're going to go back the other way. So sometimes I'll talk and I might stop and do stuff, but that doesn't mean you have to. You can always keep going. And you can always feel free to close your eyes. You could probably do most of this class with the eyes closed. The standing poses, not so much, but once you know what you're doing, once you feel the hands going around in a circle, maybe you feel the chin going up and down a little bit. You feel the breath. You can layer on the ujjayi breathing too. That's the
Hey, Keith. This is Will.
And then we'll take a few breaths, cactus breaths like this. Remember, adjust the height of your hands so your shoulders feel good. So we
Hey,
want to
Keith. Can you
adjust the
hear me?
height of the hands. So we're inhaling and exhaling. And then go ahead and give yourself a little hug. Wrap your arms. And then inhaling, and then wrap your arms again the other way, so that the other arm on top. And do that a couple times more. Remember to switch arms. Oh, you can even give a sigh. Let's do it twice more. Inhale and give a sigh when you wrap yourself, like you're giving somebody a hug. You're glad to see them, and you're like when you haven't seen somebody in a long time and you get to hug them. It's nice. We'll put our block down. So let's go back to this rocking from side to side again. And then bring the hands up like this. So depending on how the shoulders feel, you can have the hands up like this, or you can begin to extend the arms up. And notice this time I'm extending on the same side as I'm lifting the foot. Oftentimes we do it the opposite way, like this. So today we're going to do it like this. And I'm going to reach up and then come back down, almost like I'm climbing a ladder. So if you want, you can even imagine you're climbing a ladder. And become aware, feel the buttocks, feel the sitting bones underneath you. So we want to feel those we want to feel them pressing down. We're also going to feel the weight shifting from one side to the other. And as we feel the weight shifting, you're going to feel one side of the body working a little harder to keep yourself from falling over. And then we'll bring the arms down. Let's roll the shoulders. And then we're going to slide forward in the chair. We're going to circle around the shoulders like this. So as we circle the shoulders, we keep the spine extended. So the bending forward really comes down here so my hip bones, the front of my hips are right here. So let's try this. Come back like this, put the hands here, and then begin to fold forward so that the chest stays up. So the chest stays facing out towards the center of the room, and then come back up. Try that a few times. So you can even have your hands here, almost like a push-up. So you can also adjust how wide the feet are. So we want to feel naturally supported by the feet. If they're too close, it might not feel supported. And if they're too far, it might feel like you're going to fall on your face. So we don't want to do that. So we want to be somewhere in the middle. And now let's do that circling again. So we're keeping the heart lifted. And as we go back, we're engaging the abdomen. So if you want more of a challenge, you can take your hands and rest them on your abdomen, so that when you go back, there's no support, and there's no support going forward either. If you want, if you need a little less challenge, try making the circles smaller and having the hands on the legs. You could even put the hands on the side of the chair if you wanted. So some people, depends on your chair, you may be able to hold on to the edges of the chair. You could even hold, well, it's hard to hold the front. And let's see, I don't remember if we changed directions. Let's change directions anyway. I can't remember, sorry. And we'll come back up and sit up nice and tall and take a few more breaths. Inhale and give yourself a hug. And so sometimes if we do this a few times, if we do it at different times of the day, especially later in the day, you might get a better hug out of it as the shoulders start to warm up a little bit. you might find that it's easier to give yourself a squeeze and then bring the hands down. And let's let's do all the joints in the body. So starting with just opening and closing the hands. Let's rock from side to side a little bit so you can feel your sitting bones and your feet. But continue to open and close the hands, and then come right into the middle like this. So I'm feeling balanced again. So the left and right side, the feet, the buttocks, the shoulders, everybody's balanced. And then we're going to circle the wrists around. And then we'll circle the other way. Actually, I'm going to put my block back, because I notice my knees are kind of falling out. So also, the good thing about this block is it actually has multiple widths. So if I want my feet to a little bit further apart, I can turn the block a little bit. So I'm not always at the same, my knees aren't always exactly the same distance apart. And then we're changing direction with the wrists, and then back the other way. And just give them a little shake. Not hard, nice and gentle with this. And then we're going to extend and touch the shoulders. And now begin to lift the elbows up. So notice my arms are doing the same thing. They're extending and touching the shoulders. My elbows are getting a little higher. At some point, your shoulders may start to bother you. So that's high enough. But if they're not bothering you, you can go until your hands begin to touch behind your head. And then whenever you get tired, you can start to go back the other way, which means to start lowering the elbows. So I'm lowering the elbows, and they're getting closer to the legs. And now finally my hands are touching the knees again. And then I'll rest and roll the shoulders. Now let's roll them. Let's roll one shoulder and then the other. So when I roll my shoulders, just one at a time, my opposite shoulder is very relaxed. And then I'm lifting up one shoulder. It's coming a little closer to my knee. My ear. And let's rest the shoulders for a moment. We're going to do the neck. So go ahead and think about sitting up nice and tall. So we want the neck to be lengthened. We want it to feel like it's moving up. So let's inhale, lift the chin, and then go ahead and lower. It's like my chin is rocking up and down. So we've done that with the, let's actually try the feet. Try the feet like this. So we're rocking the feet back and forth. And let's try the head going up and down. So with this one, you need to slow it down a little bit, so that the head, we don't want to move the head too quickly. It's really not good for the neck. So that means you got to slow the feet down. If you want them to be in sync, you got to slow the feet down. And then go ahead and rest, and then roll the shoulders. And then we're going to tip the head. And let's add the breath to it. So we're going to inhale and sit up nice and tall and extend the neck up. And then we exhale and just release the head to the side and inhale back up and exhale. So this is similar to the arms going like this, in that the timing of the neck is going to be relative to your breath. So if you can, go ahead and close the eyes here. And then as you exhale, you just let the head fall to the side. And then you inhale and you slowly lift it up, so that the end of the inhalation corresponds to getting to the top, getting to back to neutral. And then I exhale and let it fall to the other side. So this becomes like a meditation as we engage the breath and the movement, or we synchronize the breath and the movement. And it requires some concentration. So if you look at the steps to meditation, the first one really, maybe some people would say the second, is concentration. Before you can meditate, you actually have to concentrate the mind. And we come back up. Let's roll the shoulders. And we're going to swing the hand like this. You can start with either hand, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to follow my fingers. I'm going to follow my fingers. So go ahead and look at your fingers with the head. And if it makes you at all dizzy to turn the head from side to side, go slower. Go as slow as you need to. I mean, I could go this slow and see if that helps. If you're going to, so if you go too fast, it's definitely it definitely can make you dizzy. So we go a little slower. And then let's lower that hand down and do the other side. You can even imagine it's like a little roller coaster coming down and coming up, coming down and coming up. So you can change the speed a little bit of the hand. So what I mean is that as the roller coaster gets rolling down, it gets faster. And then as it begins to climb to the top, it gets slower. And so it's faster down and slower up. And it's sort of a natural, because gravity works the same for the arm as it does for the roller coaster. It's sort of a natural feeling. The arm naturally slows down as it begins to go up because gravity is pulling it down. And as gravity pulls it down on the way down, it naturally picks up a little speed. So you can begin to let the hand float back and forth. And let's try both hands now. So all the things that I'm doing are really suggestions. And you sort of have to try it and see if you like it. Some of the stuff you may not like, and that's okay. And then let's just circle around with both hands. Depending on your shoulders, your circles may be a little smaller or they may be a little bigger. You could also even start small and begin to make them bigger. Always be mindful that when the shoulders start to bother you at all, please don't go any further. And let's change direction and go back the other way. So we're not trying to aggravate our shoulders. So one of the things, I just got an email from a person who had been to a class and had shoulder surgery recently. And one of the things that they mentioned was they had some trouble with certain poses because of their shoulders. And what we want with our shoulders is we want them to be mobile, but we also need them to be stable. So if the shoulders aren't stable and they're moving around in the joint, it often creates pain or discomfort. So we don't want that. So we need to teach the shoulders to be moving in the right place. In other words, the joint has to stay in the right position. So that's why we limit our range of motion if we need to. So let's take a few breaths. Inhale and exhale. You should be starting to get a little bit warmer. A little bit warmer. Inhaling and exhaling. And we're going to start down at the feet now. So for this one, you may want to slide. If you're not using the back of the chair, you may want to slide to the back of the chair. We're just going to lift the feet up and circle them around, circle the ankles around. Go ahead and focus in on the feet when you do this. so that they're moving in unison. And that means that the toes are pointing out at the same time, and the inside and pointing in at the same time. So you may need to slow them down a little bit. Usually one's easier to control than the other. That's normal. And you can add the hands if you want. It can be nice to add the hands. So if you hold the hands right in front of the feet so that they line up, so when you visually look at them, it's a little bit easier to keep everything in sync, because you can see the fingers and toes pointing. You can see what direction they point in with ease without really moving the eyes. Let's go the other way. Sorry. So if I'm going in one direction for too long and I forget, then feel free to change your direction. So this is your class, so you can modify it however you want. And if you want to go a little faster with these, you can. So sometimes in the beginning we start slow, and as we start to feel, we make that connection with the movement, go the other way. We can go a little faster. Let's slow down again. Let's rest and rock the feet. We did this one before, but let's do it again. And this time we're going to come up. I'll turn sideways so you can see. We're going to come up and we're going to just sort of pause for a moment. So whether the toes are lifted or the heels are lifted, come up and just pause for a moment and then let them float back the other way. Almost like that idea of the roller coaster. You know, when the roller coaster gets to the top, even as it begins, right before it starts to go down on the other side, it goes really slowly and it sort of pauses. So this is think of the same thing, a roller coaster. And you can add the hands too. So this is just a brief pause, and then back the other way, pause. Remember, find your own rhythm here, and you can add the breath. So you can add the breath to it, and it doesn't matter whether you're breathing in or breathing out, as long as you've got the rhythm. So I'm inhaling, exhaling. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. So there's this moment when the muscles are stopped. They're still contracted, but they pause for a minute. A little bit of an isometric contraction. And you also, remember, you can use your block if you want. You can always use the block. And then I'm going to go ahead and let's lift up the knee and swing the knee like this. And swing the opposite. Start with the opposite hand like this, opposite wrist. So this is good. So this is good for our brains to actually use, because one side of the brain controls the opposite side of the body. So when I use two different sides at the same time, I'm actually using both sides of the brain. And then let's rest and tap the other one. So start just by swinging the foot and then add the hand to it like this. Remember, think about the posture. Sometimes we forget. And sometimes you get a pop or a click. And we'll rest. We'll do some leg lifting, but actually let's do pointing and flexing first. So turn sideways so you can see. So I'm going to sit up nice and tall. I'm going to lift my foot up and I'm going to point and flex. When I point and flex, try to keep the bottom of the foot as if it was straight. So I'm not turning the ankle out, and I'm not turning it in. I'm keeping it as straight as I can. And they're not going to be exactly straight, at least mine aren't. So I think for most of us, we all have this tendency to be a little bit one side or the other. But as best you can, see if you can make them even. And actually, let's try this. Let's do the hand too. So we're gonna flex the foot and flex the hand. So the flexing is like this. So this will be pointing, and this will be flexing. So we're going to point and flex. And you know, the idea is kind of the same. We have this shortening of the muscles up here and on the top of the leg, and then an extension of them too. And I know if anybody who does a lot of computer work, if you do some wrist exercises, not necessarily these, but let's switch sides. So we're going to point and flex on the other side. They're very helpful, or can be very helpful to eliminate pain and keep sort of the wrist moving better. And that means a little bit of extension and flexion. And want to be careful not to overdo with any of these. So if you're experiencing pain, try making the movement a little smaller and a little less effort. See if you can back off enough so that you don't have pain or discomfort. And that may take some practice. And sometimes we have to really put the brakes on so that we don't have that. We're going to lift up and change legs. Actually, let's do this. Go ahead and sit up nice and tall in mountain pose again. So get your feeling of support in the feet and the buttocks. And in this case, since I'm sitting back in the chair, the backs of the thighs are also supported. And then I'm going to lift up. And notice when I begin to lift up, notice when we lift up that it's a little bit harder. Sometimes we lose a little bit of our length in the spine. So try pressing the opposite foot down as you lift up. Try pressing the opposite foot. So there's a little bit of engagement. So when we lift and extend the leg, we get good engagement along this side of the body with the lifted leg. So we also want to encourage engagement on this side. So you might notice a little more firming of the abdomen if you're pressing your foot down. We're going to go back and forth. And then we're going to add the arm to it. So we're going to lift the arm up and then down, and then up and down. So this is a very good stretch for the hamstring. Hamstring. If your shoulders bother you, just try bending the elbow and lifting the elbow up. See if that helps. You could also lift up to the side. So it kind of depends. Depending on how you rotate the shoulder can determine how it feels. So for some people, you'll get easier lift to the side, and some people will be in the front. So you have to experiment, and you have to try it and see. Now you can keep doing one leg at a time, or you can do both legs at a time. So if you do both legs, try one arm. And then if that feels okay, or it's too easy, try both arms. It's definitely harder with both arms and both legs. Because really the only support that you have when we lift our legs up like this and lift our arms up, the only support is right down here, which means it's hard to stay lifted. It's hard to keep the rest of us straight. So you may want to just work with one. The other thing is if you have an asymmetry in the body. So if you have a scoliosis or things where the one side of the body is noticeably different than the other side, then stay with the one. Don't do both at the same time. It's very hard to make that work. It's actually not helpful. And then let's do a few more. You can even imagine you're a dancer, letting the arm float up. So see if you can get a little bit more. It doesn't have to be straight up and down. It can curve a little bit. And bring the arms down. Let's roll the shoulders. And then back the other way. And then a couple of breaths. Inhale and exhale. So we're going to do mountain pose, and we're going to work with the knees. So let's slide forward in the chair. First, we'll do it seated for a moment, and then we're going to stand up. But if you know it's standing up, go ahead. We've done this before in the class. This is where we'll stand in mountain pose or sit in mountain pose, and we're going to flex the knees. Now, if you're seated, you're going to press the feet, and you'll get an isometric contraction here in the thighs and in the abdomen when you press down. So almost like as if you were going to stand up, and you press, but you don't stand up. So I'm pressing. You could even, if you wanted, seated, you could try this. You could bring the hands to the seat of the chair, press down, and even with the hands, begin to, so my butt is not lifting out of the chair, but it's not, all my weight isn't in my buttocks. My weight is shifting in a little bit into my hands, but mostly into my feet, as if I'm going to stand up. And if you're standing, remember, if you're standing and balance is at all an issue, please stand so that you have something to hold on to and to get a little bit of information from for balance. So if you're standing, you got the feet about hip width apart, and I'm going to bend the knees. And this is where that block or towel, if you want, can come in handy. You don't have to. In some ways, this kind of makes it easier just because I don't have to worry about the knees going out. In order to hold the block, I have to squeeze the block, and the knees tend to stay on track. So it kind of makes it easier in a way. But you don't have to use the block. But if you don't use the block, you have to pay more attention to the knees and make sure that they're going straight ahead. Mine tend to fall out like that. So we want the knees to be going straight. And don't have them go past. So when I bend the knees, they're only going about as far as the toes. I don't cover the feet when I bend the knees. So I'm more like this. So I'm like this, and I look down. I only go so far as the knees go to the end of the toes. So when I'm looking down, I can still see the tips of my toes. And I still want to be nice and tall when I do that. You might notice the weight moves a little bit into the heels more. So I'm not leaning back on the heel. I'm not doing this. A little bit more of the weight is in the heels. And I'm still sitting up tall. And I'm even engaging the gluteal muscles too. Remember, you can always put your hands on the gluteal muscles so that you can feel them contract. And you can even squeeze them a little bit. Squeeze them together. So we want to be able to get them to work. And when the gluteal muscles are working, it helps to take some of the pressure off the knees. The thighs don't have to work as hard when the butt muscles are working. And let's stand up nice and tall and take a couple of breaths. So inhale, or if you're seated, same thing. And a couple of times, just wrap the hands. And then we're going to move the feet a little further apart and then swing the arms. So whether or not I'm standing or seated, and remember, you can always sit down. If you're tired, feel free to sit down. Just be careful of the arms of the chair if you're seated, or the back of the chair. You don't bang yourself. So you might even want to bring the hands in a little and just let the elbows go back. That's actually a good way, especially if you're seated. You can really feel the belly turning. You can really feel the belly turning just by moving the elbow back. So there's this movement across this diagonal from the hip up to the shoulder as I move my elbow back. And I'm not really turning my head. Actually, I have a couple of choices. You could keep the head straight ahead. So that so now my head is actually turning relative to my shoulders, because my shoulders are turning and my neck is not. It's a little bit like the hips aren't really turning very much. or I could let my head turn with my shoulders. So the neck isn't turning at all, or I could even turn my head with the shoulders. I could even turn it opposite like this. So whenever we turn the neck, we always want to make sure we don't have neck issues. If you have neck issues, if your neck bothers you, or you have any, pinched nerve, if you have any vertebra damage, or even if your neck doesn't feel good, you always want to try to keep your neck as neutral as you can. And let's bring the hands down. And I'm going to do a little bit of, so you can do this seated as well. So I'm going to show it standing first. We're going to stand behind our chair, or at least stand so that you're in mountain pose, and you're welcome to use the chair. And then I'm going to step my my foot back like this. Notice the ball of my foot is on the floor, and there's an opening here in the front. So this is so when I'm seated, this is a nice stretch to do to counteract when we sit. When I'm seated, my leg is bent like this. When I'm seated in the chair, I get this 90-degree angle. But when I do this, I open it's not really the hip. The hip is over here. It's more like the groin and where the leg attaches in the front. So I'm going to go back and forth like that. I'm not going to hold it. I'm going to step back and then step back and step back and step forward. So I'm going to go back and forth like that, inhaling up, and then I exhale and come back. Inhale up. So when I inhale, I lift up. The good thing about the chair is if you gently take the fingertips, you get yourself a little more lift. So notice as my right in the front, my chest is lifted. I'm open like this. So I'm open like this. You could even add the arms. That's as long as your balance is good, you could add the arms like this. So when I'm stepping back, it's like this and this. So notice balance. You have to be really thoughtful about your balance with this. You have to be very thoughtful about your balance. If you're in the chair, so you can do a similar thing in the chair. If you slide to the side of the chair, you won't be able to do it if you have arms on the chair. But if you don't have arms, you can take the foot and you can go back like this. And notice the shape is similar. There's this bend in the front, and then you can bring it back. And what I would do is work with one side first. And so if you're in the chair, you could actually turn your foot so the top of the foot is down, but that might be too much stretch for the front of the ankle here. So if it is, just go back like this. And then you can change to the other side. So if you're standing up, continue with that exercise unless you want to stop because you're tired or your balance is an issue, in which case you can pause for a minute or you can sit down. And then we're going to do, we're going to come up to the chair or slide forward in the chair if you're seated. And we're going to do some raises, some heel raises like this. So notice I'm lifting the heels up and then I'm coming slowly. So I'm doing this with control. I'm lifting up and coming back down and lifting up and coming back down. So if you're if you're seated and doing this and you slide forward in the chair, you slide forward in the chair. As you come forward, you lift the heels up. And you'll get a little more, definitely requires more effort. You have to press, as you come forward, the weight shifts into the toes, so you have to press more firmly, which is similar to when you're standing. So you have to kind of decide, if you're standing, you're doing this. And if you want to make it more challenging, go slower. And if you still want to make it more challenging, you can try going a little higher. You will find that if you do it with, if you go too high or too slow, it can be hard on the calves in the back. So you may have to build up over time, probably over several weeks. And whenever I refer to building up with these exercises, we're going to do our balance pose next. So come on down and just stand up in mountain pose. So stand up nice and tall in mountain pose. So we're in mountain pose. So when I refer to building up over time, it takes a while to develop the muscular control and also to start to build strength. I mean, I've heard that they estimate that it takes several weeks to actually develop new muscular control. So that means if you're trying to teach a part of your body something, it takes a few weeks for it to learn it, and then it can take a number of months for the muscles to actually begin to really take hold and, you know, be more built up, so that you can really change whatever it is you're trying to change. So we'll stand up nice and tall. And we'll do crane pose today. So we'll inhale. So we'll start in mountain pose. We'll inhale, stand up nice and tall, and think about pressing that right leg down, that right foot, and then go ahead and lift the left up. So if you need help with balance or you're not sure, have the chair handy. You can always just rest your finger on it. So sometimes just a little bit of balance, this actually gives good information. And I'm going to start by just lifting and going back down, keeping the leg pressing down. And I want the gluteal muscles engaged here. So when I press the leg, I want the butt muscles to engage. And if you want more of a challenge, try going a little slower and or a little higher. You might even notice when you go slower that you can kind of feel the adjustment that your foot has to make to keep the balance. So there's many, many muscles in the feet and the ankles that adjust themselves for our balance. And then whenever you're ready, you can come back down. Remember, you can always come back down sooner too. So let's do the other side. So stand in mountain pose again. And we're pressing the left foot. This time I'm mirroring you. So press the left foot, extend the leg up, and then go ahead and lift the opposite foot up. So we're going to start just by going up and down. Remember, you can go slower. You can even hold the knee up there if you want more of a challenge. If you want more of a challenge, you can lower down and just touch and then come back up. And notice the bottom of the standing foot on this side. See if you can feel the muscles. See if you can feel the balance working in the foot and the ankle. Oh, you can also, if you want, you can add your wings if you want. Sorry, I forgot on the other side. You can flap your wings. You could even flap your wings with your knee like this. So as your knee comes up, let the arms come up. It's kind of like this kind of reminds me of something where from a movie. I'm not sure what it is. Oh, I know what it is. Yeah, I think Where the Wild Things Are. There's a book, and I think the kid in it, he gets into some trouble. But I think in one of the pictures, he's like this because he's a wild thing. It's a good book, actually. And let's do the other side because we forgot the arms. And you can also remember, if you still want to use your chair, it's no problem. Use the chair with one hand and do the other. So this is a one-winged crane. And I like to do the opposite side thing. So as I'm lifting this leg, I'm raising the other arm. And then if I'm going to shift, I would do the other side. So I would lift this side. So we're using that remember that opposite side of the brain. although we're really using both sides anyway, because this leg is supposed to be strong and actually engaged. So we want this leg, we want to feel it engaged, even though the other one's doing something different. And we're going to come back down. We're going to sit back in our chair. We're going to slide forward and make some circles around. Make some circles around. And then when you're ready, you can go the opposite way. So we're going to warm down for a minute, and then we're going to do our relaxation. So we'll start with the inhale, lifting the arms up and around. So we're going to go slower here, a little bit slower. So we're slowing everything down. We're slowing the breath down, slowing the movement down, but we still have our good posture. Feel free to close the eyes. Try to get rid of those distractions. And I think if it's all right with everybody, especially Will and Bhati, if we can go another 5 minutes, tell me if it's not okay. But if we can go another 5 minutes, that'll give us a nice relaxation. We're going to go the opposite way. So we're letting the breath calm down here. Really letting the breath calm down. And then we'll bring the hands right in the front, and then we'll inhale. Give a little sigh as you give yourself a hug. And then again, inhale. And and one more on each side. Bring the arms down, roll the shoulders. So we're going to do our final relaxation. I'm going to take a blanket and put it behind me because my chair isn't very padded. But find whatever you need to make it comfortable. You're also welcome. I think we mentioned this the last time, I'm not sure, but you're always welcome. You're at home. If you want to do the relaxation laying down on the floor in a supine position, you can. So it's really up to you. It's whatever's comfortable. I mean, chair's not bad. Assuming your chair, you've got a good chair, it can be quite comfortable. But if you prefer to do it on the floor, that's okay too. So we want to feel supported, whether or not we're in a chair or on a floor. In order to relax, the back of the body needs to feel supported. Or you could even, if you wanted, you could take our they call it Chavasana, which is actually, which translates as corpse pose. You could lay on your belly. Some people actually like that. It can be, if your neck, if you have a really good neck, it's not so bad because you can turn your head. Otherwise, it can be problematic. So I prefer mine. If I'm laying down